You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Hey, everybody. This is Troy over at Uncomfortable Truths. Thanks for checking me out. So today we have to talk about what happened with Kamala Harris during her disastrous interview on Fox News. Because without even trying, Bret Baier basically wrecked Kamala Harris's campaign just by letting her talk. Kamala Harris failed to answer any question really whatsoever, and instead just kept pivoting and kept trying to go to her same old script. And honestly, baby girl may have absolutely just ended her campaign right here. So let's take a look at some of what's going on with Kamala Harris, because you don't have to take my word for it. This interview is absolutely horrible. Just watch.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and
they didn't bring up...
So this is really weird, because for months when Trump was in debates or when Trump was being interviewed, I was told that when a journalist was speaking, you were supposed to completely stop talking and accept whatever they say is the fact to actually be the fact. And during the entire Trump debates, that's what was done. They would cut his mic and they would say, no, your mics are cut. We're going to go ahead and fact check you now. Well, now all of a sudden that's happened to Kamala Harris, baby girl's frustrated. See, she isn't used to actually taking these questions from an adversarial media person. What she's used to is going on The View and having everybody suck her off during the entire interview. Well, now that that actually isn't working, she doesn't know what to do, because he is completely correct. Democrats were in charge of the presidency, they were in charge of the House, and in charge of the Senate. They could have done whatever they wanted. And what they did was they rolled back protections on the border, and they decided that they were going to open that up in order to help them for some unknown purpose. But is it really unknown, or do we have a pretty good idea of why the Democrats want these open borders? And now that it's becoming a liability for them coming up into an election, now all of a sudden they actually want to address these problems, but they've had years to address them, and they absolutely did not do it in any way, shape, or form. So for Kamala Harris to sit there and not actually answer the question, and then to run away from an actual fact check, is completely pathetic. But this isn't the end of the absurd things that she's going to do during this interview.
Responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
All right, so you heard that. The problem with what she's saying is that none of it's true. We know that this isn't the case, and you don't have to be a genius to really understand why. Think about how stupid she thinks you are to actually believe what she is saying. She wants you to believe that Donald Trump, who is not in office, has more power than all of the Democrats combined. The Democrats who are the president, the Democrats who are in charge of Congress, and the Democrats in charge of the Senate. She thinks that Donald Trump out of office has more power when it comes to the border than all of these people combined. Look, all they had to do was keep Donald Trump's executive actions in place, and it would have kept the border locked down. The Democrats chose not to do that. And now that they're going into an election year and people are tired of their resources going to illegal immigrants, and they're tired of watching their towns suffer, they're tired of watching illegal immigrants live in hotels that are put up by the government while we watch our homeless veterans on the street begging for change. This is what the Democrats actually prioritized, and now she's trying to step away from it. But people aren't falling for it because they're not idiots. They know that Donald Trump wasn't in charge because when Donald Trump was in charge, say whatever you want about the dude, but Donald Trump was defending the border. Donald Trump was not soft when it came to immigration the way the Democrats are, and she just thinks you're stupid. That's why she says these things.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in
her?
all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
All right, guys, I'm going to be as clear as I possibly can here, because what we just watched was a monstrous action taken by Kamala Harris. She just watched the video of a mother who lost their child because of the Biden and Harris policies. Because Democrats don't want to control immigration and they don't want to vet the people coming into our country, and instead they want to let criminals run loose across our entire country, because of that, this woman lost her child. And when asked if she owes this woman an apology, instead of actually taking a moment to say, you know what, I wish we would have done more to make sure that this didn't happen. Instead, Kamala Harris makes the decision to blame the person who controlled immigration, to blame the person who controlled the border, and to say that no, he should be taking responsibility. That's disgusting, and it's anti-human. It's one of the main reasons why I would no longer consider myself a Democrat and want nothing to do with the party whatsoever. Because they might say the right things, and they might say that they're for workers, but at the end of the day, they are not for you. They do not care. The only things they care about are overseas conflicts and getting cheap labor here, even if that means that some of us are going to lose our children because of these actions. So this is why we need to get Kamala Harris out of power and make sure that she stays as far away from the presidency as possible. So even if you don't like Trump, there is a clear person who is more qualified to be the president of the two candidates running, and it's damn sure not Kamala Harris. So everybody, that's all I have on this one today. Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. It helps the show out a lot, and it helps us get our message out so that all these liberals who are trying to silence everybody on YouTube that doesn't agree with them actually have to listen to alternative points of view. Thanks, everybody. Take care.